I think I'll try to be remarkable. So, what should I do? Should I write a book? Should I start a podcast? Should I have a TikTok channel? What should I do to position myself as remarkable? I don't think it's like that at all. I think they fall in love with an idea, whether you're Jane Goodall and it's research on chimpanzees or it's Neil deGrasse Tyson on astrophysics. You are driven by an obsession to do something great. And if you do something great, people will think you're remarkable. Remarkable people, first of all, have a growth mindset. And a growth mindset means that you can learn new things, you can do new things, you can take risks, you can grow. The second thing is they have a grit attitude. A grit attitude means that if you have a growth mindset and you try new things, you're not going to be good at them initially. So you have to keep at it. And this is something, of all cultures, I would think the Japanese understand because, I'm going off a stereotype here, but, when you go to work for a sushi bar in the first 7 years, you're just washing the bowls. Take some perseverance to want to be a sushi chef. You don't just, after 1 week, you're a sushi chef. So that takes grit. And then the final component is grace, that at the end of your career, you realize that it is not about you anymore. It's about helping others and helping the next generation. So I would say that remarkable people have a growth mindset, a grit mindset, and a grace mindset.
On the topic of grit, how does someone know when you should be continuing to persevere and when you should, stop and say, hey, look, this isn't working. Let me, shut down this company. Let me change this career path. What's the balance there?
I think this is one of those kind of things that you can only look backwards and say, yeah, I was right to do that. At the time, you have to make a decision. It's very difficult to know. And, if you look at management books, half the management books say you need to persevere and never give up. The other half of management books says you need to pivot and break things quickly, right? So which one do you do? Those are absolute opposites. And I don't think there is a right answer. In a sense, that's what defines entrepreneurship. And I'll tell you something. I don't want people in Japan to think that in Silicon Valley, we know what the hell we're doing. We don't know what the hell we're doing. We don't know any better than anybody else. I think what Silicon Valley does, though, is we know how to declare victory better than the Japanese.
What do you mean by that? I'm curious.
If you start a company to do one thing and it ends up doing another, you say, yeah, of course, we knew exactly what we're doing. We always wanted to do a search engine and we were never going to be a consulting firm. But at the time you had no idea what the hell you're going to be. So we know how to declare victory. The way Silicon Valley works is you throw a lot of things up against the wall. A very small amount of it sticks. And you go up to the wall and you paint the bullseye around what's stuck and you say, I hit the bullseye. I knew exactly what I was doing. I was aiming for that bullseye and I hit it. Well, you can always hit the bullseye if you paint the target after you see what's stuck to the wall.
When we're talking about growth, grit, and grace, let's say someone wants to use entrepreneurship as a tool to become a remarkable person or to, have impact on the world. How do you think that framework might specifically apply to founders?
Let me put it this way. I don't think that the people on my podcast who are remarkable, I don't think they ever sat down and said, I think I'll try to be remarkable. So what should I do? Should I write a white paper? Should I write a book? Should I start a podcast? Should I have a TikTok channel? What should I do to position myself as remarkable? I don't think it's like that at all. I think they fall in love with an idea, whether you're Jane Goodall and it's research on chimpanzees or it's Neil deGrasse Tyson on astrophysics or Stephen Wolfram on mathematics or, whatever it is. And so you are driven by an obsession to do something great. And if you do something great, then people will consider you remarkable. So the goal is not to be considered remarkable. That's a natural byproduct. The goal is to do something great. And if you do something great, people will think you're remarkable. So the thing is to focus on making a remarkable product or service or idea or organization, and everything else falls into place.
Do you think doing what you love is a requirement? Perhaps a requirement is too strong of a word, but a requirement to have that kind of impact?
That's a tricky question because there are going to be moments whenever you do anything, which comes back to grit, where you're going to absolutely hate what you do. There are moments I hate what I have to do for podcasting. I give you, like, I have to read about 50 something books a year in order to prepare myself for these interviews, right? And some of these books are so poorly written and formatted. I just want to throw up when I do that, but you gotta do that, right? I mean, and so there was a guest named Mark Manson on my podcast, and he gave me a brilliant insight. He said, you know what? You have found what you love to do when it involves a shit sandwich, but you love the shit sandwich. So I could make the case that probably Japanese people could understand this because, I watch these National Geographic specials about this 90-year-old guy, and he makes the best samurai swords in Japan. And they do this 2-hour special, and he goes up to the mountain and he finds the iron ore, and then he brings it back to his shop and he melts the iron ore, and then he pounds it 10,000 times, and then he puts it back in the thing, and he, tempers it some more. He pounds it another 10,000 times. He makes the handle from this special wood that he found in this forest that only one place has it. And it takes 9 months to make a knife. And I would make the case there's a lot of shit sandwiches in being the best at making a knife or a pot or a kimono or anything like that, right? There's a lot of shit sandwiches. But when you love to make the best knife or the best kimono or the best pot or the best vase, you don't mind. People from the outside may say, wow, what a bunch of shit you have to do. But they love that. So that's the test.